Portland is unbelievable what's going on in Portland. Destruction of the city. That was not on my list, Portland, but when I watched television last night...
The president shouldn't be deciding to use the military against his own citizens based on what he saw on television last night, especially since small towns have higher crime rates than big cities. I grew up in Oregon, and when I go and visit my family and friends there, the fear-mongering is crazy. They're like, don't go to Portland, you don't even understand how bad it is. They burned down the whole city, not a single building is standing. Be very careful if you go to Portland. You're likely going to get assaulted. And then I go to Portland to visit my friends who live there, and I get a salted caramel latte, and we walk around, and I don't understand what the big hubbub is.
What's happening in Chicago is not happening in Portland, but you know what? I did not know Portland's game. They are not having it. From Oregon's governor who pulled up and said, there's nothing wrong with our state, it's fine, don't come here or I'll also sue you, to the people of Portland who are giving the leader of our nation an earful because he called their city a war-ravaged city. And no, I've never been to Portland, but I know that Portland is not known for being a war-ravaged city, a place riddled with crime that needs the National Guard to come save it. And now that the leader of our nation is actually sending the National Guard, Oregon has vowed to sue him. And from what I've seen, the people of Portland have vowed to not make it easy for the National Guard while they're there.
So the president is declaring war on American cities by sending troops into Portland, Oregon. Just gonna let that soak in for a sec. When stuff like this happens, I think it's important to remember the age-old saying, I believe it was Lincoln who said this, that a house divided cannot stand. And we're very quickly approaching a scenario where, despite our many distinct differences politically, at some point, we are going to have to band together and overthrow...
Portland, Oregon. Once again, the center of America's fight over protest, politics, and policing. Federal troops have now been deployed to crack down on Antifa-linked unrest. Some say it's the only way to bring back law and order. Others call it a dangerous abuse of government power. But one thing is clear, Portland has become a battlefield for America's deeper divisions. Hey everyone, Dennis here. Quick note before we dive in. All video clips and images belong to their original creators. I'm here giving commentary and analysis, and I really appreciate every creator whose work makes this conversation possible. Much love and respect to you all. Let's start with the facts. Federal troops, including National Guards and specialized federal officers, have been sent to Portland. Their stated mission: to protect federal buildings, assist local law enforcement, and stop Antifa groups that have been linked to demonstrations, property destruction, and direct clashes with the police. Officials argue that Portland has struggled for years with riots, vandalism, and unrest tied to far-left extremist groups. For them, this isn't about silencing peaceful protests. It's about ending chaos that local leaders, in their view, have failed to control. But here's where it gets controversial. Antifa is not an official organization with membership cards. It's more of a loose ideology, a network of activists who say they are anti-fascist. The problem is, in practice, Antifa-linked protests in Portland have often turned destructive. Businesses have been burned, police attacked, and entire neighborhoods disrupted.
So my message to all the people that's in the military, that's abiding by the rules that Donald Trump sent to them, as opposed to them sending all of these damn military servicemen to Portland, Oregon, that's very much illegal. You're not supposed to do that shit, and you're supposed to actually decline doing anything illegal. Honestly, you know, the U.S. military is not an enforcement force, and the fact that Donald Trump told them to do full force in Oregon is actually illegal. That is very much authoritarianism and fascist dictatorship bullshit. All of that is rhetoric, okay, you guys? At the end of the day, like I said to y'all before, the United States military is not an enforcement force, and all the federalized service must abide by the Pause Comitatus Act. And basically, they must disobey any type of illegal orders. And to every guy and woman that's inside the military that's not saying no to these fucking orders, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself. Be ashamed of yourself. How are you going to other countries to defend your country, but coming to your country to actually harm your country? Make that shit make sense. All of our military men, like I said, you know, Donald Trump had asked for Pete Hegseth to send for all of the fucking military servicemen and all this other shit to come to Quantico on Tuesday, right? All the generals, all the admirals, all meeting up at Quantico, right, on Tuesday. This is very, very much alarming, and I feel like Trump has given anyone that is protesting or anything of the sort a label that is a terrorist, and now you have our own military men and women coming to fucking harm and kill people. And that's crazy because he said use full force. That is fucking illegal. You cannot do that. How can you be mad at anyone that said they are anti-fascist? Make that shit make fucking sense. How are they labeled terrorists? What the fuck is going on? And you know something crazy? That's a rhetorical fucking question because we know exactly what the fuck is going on. Trump has given anyone that is protesting or anything of the sort a label that is a terrorist, and now you have our own military men and women coming to fucking harm and kill people. And that's crazy because he said use full force. That is fucking illegal. You cannot do that. How can you be mad at anyone that said they are anti-fascist? Make that shit make fucking sense. How are they labeled terrorists? What the fuck is going on? And you know something crazy? That's a rhetorical fucking question because we know exactly what the fuck is going on.
Portland is unbelievable what's going on in Portland. Destruction of the city. That was not on my list, Portland, but when I watched television last night.
The president shouldn't be deciding to use the military against his own citizens based on what he saw on television last night, especially since small towns have higher crime rates than big cities. I grew up in Oregon, and when I go and visit my family and friends there, the fear-mongering is crazy. They're like, don't go to Portland, you don't even understand how bad it is. They burned down the whole city, not a single building is standing. Be very careful if you go to Portland. You're likely going to get assaulted. And then I go to Portland to visit my friends who live there, and I get a salted caramel latte, and we walk around, and I don't understand what the big hubbub is. I ask my friends who live in Portland, and they're like, I don't get it either. Everything is fine. But I want to show you what I mean when I say that small towns have higher crime rates than big cities. And as an example, I'm going to use St. Helens, where I grew up, which also happens to be Halloween Town. It's really hard to find crime stats for small towns. The smaller the town, the longer it takes for them to report crime. The most recent data I could find from St. Helens is 2022. A lot of the small towns around St. Louis in Missouri, where I live, have no data reported since 2018. I calculated up the violent crimes in this time period, averaged them, compared that to the average population in this time period to get the crime rate per capita for violent crimes in St. Helens, Oregon. And Halloween Town has 766 violent crimes per 100,000 people, compared to Portland, Oregon, which has 720 violent crimes per 100,000 people. It is safer in Portland than it is in Halloween Town. Big cities can often be a lot safer because there is more of a police presence. There are cameras everywhere. There's just a lot more people around to observe. It's harder to get away with crimes here. Now, there are more homicides in big cities, but that usually has to do with the buying and selling of illicit substances. By and large, cities are fairly safe, but if you have a kilo of crack in your trunk, then it's not safe. But I also want you to consider, if you live in a small town, is there a drug problem in your town? The homicides that you see in the city are part of an illegal drug trade. And those drugs aren't coming from that city and they're not ending up in that city. They're going to your small towns. Stop doing drugs and there will be less homicide in the city. But that also means that sending the military isn't going to help. It's just going to move where they do that activity. If the National Guard is all over Portland, instead of doing the deals there, they will do them in St. Helens, in Halloween Town. That will make a spike in homicides in the surrounding small towns. Random violent crime is pretty rare. The most dangerous person for you is your husband, your boyfriend, your father, your brother, your cousin, your uncle. The men in your life are more likely to hurt you than some random person in Portland.
What's happening in Chicago is not happening in Portland, but you know what? I did not know Portland's game. They are not having it. From Oregon's governor who pulled up and said, there's nothing wrong with our state, it's fine, don't come here or else we'll sue you, to the people of Portland who are giving the leader of our nation an earful because he called their city a war-ravaged city. And no, I've never been to Portland, but I know that Portland is not known for being a war-ravaged city, a place riddled with crime that needs the National Guard to come save it. And now that the leader of our nation is actually sending the National Guard, Oregon has vowed to sue him. And from what I've seen, the people of Portland have vowed to not make it easy for the National Guard while they're there. I've seen them arrest people outside of Portland immigration facilities who are peacefully protesting, and I've seen them come after people with excessive force. But just like Chicago, Portland ain't going for that. Portland's not having it. From the way they stick together to the way they mock our commander-in-chief, they are letting it be known that this is not what they're about. And I'm so here for that. We all need to stand up in that same way. So whether you're in Portland, Chicago, LA, wherever this is happening, stick together, be safe, have your phone on you, and remember, community is the way. Sticking together is the way. They don't want us to come together. They don't want us to find commonality between each other. They don't want us to care about our neighbors. And unfortunately for them, we do, and we will. So to the people of Portland, I see you and keep going. And no matter where you are, stay safe. Bye.
So we're on our way to Immigration's Custom Enforcement in Portland, Oregon to report for ourselves on the wars going on here in the city. Are you ready, Helena? I'm ready. Here we go. This is just us heading there. We are about 9 minutes out at this point. Stand by.
Okay, we're about 6 minutes out at this point.
Okay, we're about 1 minute out, not even. Here we go. There's some people standing. Seems pretty... yeah. Seems pretty peaceful. There's people out here, but... There's our war, guys. That's it. There's nothing else out here. I don't see anything going on. Okay, now that we didn't see anything really going on there, we're going to head over to the Justice Center in downtown Portland, just because during Black Lives Matter and 2020 pandemic, I think this was a place that a lot of rioting took place, and it seems like some of this footage coming out now is from then. So we're going to go see what currently is really going on over there. This is about 2 minutes away. Waterfront Park. So this is the Justice Center. I almost missed it, honestly, because nothing going on. There's nothing here. I mean, there's some construction, some leaves blowing because it's fall in Oregon. But I was like, oh, I should start filming. It's the park across the street from the Justice Center. The Justice Center's here, and here's that park I'm talking about. This is actually the best I've seen Portland in a long time. It looks very clean and very, very peaceful. Alright, so we didn't find anything, and that was the main spot of protest during Black Lives Matter and everything. And we're just kind of driving around, and I mean, it's kind of crazy because I really haven't even seen any homeless this time around. But yeah.
So the president is declaring war on American cities by sending troops into Portland, Oregon. Just gonna let that soak in for a sec. When stuff like this happens, I think it's important to remember the age-old saying, I believe it was Lincoln who said this, that a house divided cannot stand. And we're very quickly approaching a scenario where, despite our many distinct differences politically, at some point we are going to have to band together and overthrow the powers that be. We can go back to hating each other afterwards, but I mean, y'all can't be getting down with this. Like, I know my homies on the left, myself included, definitely aren't, but like, conservatives and Republicans being cool with this? Dog. I'm just saying. The people in power benefit greatly by us all fighting with each other. Because if we're pointing the finger across the room at one another, none of us are pointing the finger up at them. So just keep that in mind. Whenever civil war breaks out, just keep in mind, think of, Finnegan O'Dare and Hamish Abernathy from Hunger Games. And you remember who the real enemy is. And spoiler alert, it's not trans people, just a hint.
My name is Paul Cruz. I was a sergeant first class in the U.S. Army. I served on active duty from 2004 until 2012. I served in the U.S. Army Reserves from 2012 until 2021. I was an intelligence analyst, tactical information operations planner, and instructor. I'm asking anyone who served, who raised their hands, to remember the oaths they took. I deployed to Iraq in 2008 and 2009 with 3rd Brigade, 25th Infantry Division. I'm asking everyone out there who raised their hand to just think about what's going on. And you took an oath to the Constitution. Remember that you took an oath to the Constitution and not loyalty to one person. And that there are such things as unlawful orders. The Nuremberg trials, the defense, I was only following orders, wasn't good enough. Not good enough then, it's not good enough now. I'm just asking you to take it into consideration, and for everyone that's out, going to be out protesting, and you know, No Kings protests or the veterans protests and ICE protests, doesn't matter. If you're out this weekend and you're in a major city and things are going on, be peaceful. Exercise your First Amendment rights. Those are protected. The right to assemble peaceably, peacefully, you know, without burning cars to the ground. And I know that the situation was exaggerated by the media and other factors. But we need to take into consideration that don't give them a reason. Tight, chill, bro. I'm trying to record. Just don't give them a reason, is what I'm saying. Don't give them a reason at all to, you know, they're looking for one. Just don't give them what they want. Like, if everybody just, the soldiers that are going to be there and the Marines and even the cops, they're tired. They're going to be really irritable. They're not going to want, so just don't engage. Try to help and be calm and soothe everything out. And I know that it's difficult, but we need to remember who the real enemy is. They've got everybody fighting over who's, you know, immigrants and blaming these people for taking their jobs and blaming everything on, you know, visas and programs and, you know, all our money is going overseas. No, your money's been going into the pockets of politicians. Your money's been going into the pockets of all of these billionaires. They've been making excuses. It's everyone else. Everyone else's fault. It's just them. It's just them. That's the real enemy. The rest of us need to realize, and I know that's difficult because I know a lot of people look at the civil rights movement and say, hey, where were, you know, the Latinos, where were the other groups at that time? And I understand that, absolutely. I think it's, I get it. So I can't say nothing about it. We just got to keep fighting. But I feel that we have to come together in this, and I feel that we will. I have faith that we will. And I'm doing my best to make sure that that's true. So again, just remember you have your oaths, and just remember, like, why did you put that uniform on? I'll share some information later, but a friend of mine posted a meme that I thought was celebrating soldiers, you know, fighting against American civilians, and I could not keep my mouth shut on that. So I honestly, is this who we are? Is this who we are now? As a people, as a country, like what are we doing, man? Like I'm genuinely asking, what are we doing? Like, as a people, like what happened to decency? Like, this is inhumane. People getting put in cages. Like, I don't even want, like, I actually, it's difficult to talk about, I'm being honest. It affects me in personal ways as well, but that's not even the point. It shouldn't even matter. I think that we're in a moment of time, and each person needs to take a long look at themselves. They can take a look in the mirror, take a look in your soul, whatever it is, and ask yourself, are you on the right side of history? Ask yourself if you're just planting your feet because you're embarrassed by what you believe. You don't need to double down. Now is the time for us to get together, because it's intense, people. It's intense. So I just want you to say that, you know, I'm loyal to my oath, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that are loyal to this. You're going to find one person here and there. We need to point out those lone wolves. We need to point out those bad actors. We need to point out the individuals that do that, because it's not everyone. Most people still, you know, there's still hope left. I'll say that. I still believe that. Absolutely. Let's go.
So the question becomes, how do you deal with a movement that doesn't have a clear leader but has the real impact on the streets? Sending troops might look strong, but it could also feed into Antifa's narrative that the government is oppressive and dangerous. And of course, this story has exploded into politics. Republicans argue this proves their point that Democrat-led cities are too soft on crime, too lenient on violent activism, and unwilling to stand up to extremism. They say if local leaders won't act, the federal government must. Democrats fire back saying this is just theater, that the administration is exaggerating the Antifa threat to score political points, that the federal intervention makes things worse, turning protesters into martyrs and sparking even more unrest. Let's not forget Donald Trump. He has long called Antifa a terrorist movement and has said over and over again if his policies on policing and border security had been taken seriously, situations like Portland wouldn't spiral this far. His supporters see this deployment as a proof that he was right all along. But here's the part often lost in the shouting. The people of Portland. Everyday citizens are the ones who pay the price. Think about it. A shop owner who worked for years to build a business only to see it vandalized during riots. A parent just trying to keep their kids safe on the way to school while streets are flooded with protests and police. Even young activists who sincerely believe they are standing up for justice but now face heavily armed troops in their neighborhoods. It's easy for politicians in Washington, D.C. to argue, but the reality on ground is that ordinary Portlanders are stuck between a radical movement and a militarized response. And history shows us America has faced this dilemma before. In the 1960s, federal troops were sent into cities during civil rights demonstrations and anti-war protests. Sometimes it restored order. Other times it only deepened the anger and distrust between communities and the government. The Constitution protects the right to protest, but it does not protect violence, destruction, or organized attacks on law enforcement. The line between protest and riot is thin, but it's one the law has to wrestle with. Right now, Portland is that front line. Here's my take. Violence in the name of justice is still violence. No matter how noble you think the cause is, destroying your neighbor's business or throwing explosives at police doesn't create peace. It creates fear. At the same time, deploying troops inside American cities should never be the first solution. It feels like a failure of leadership, of community dialogue, of trust. Because once soldiers are on the streets, the conversation isn't about justice anymore. It's about survival. This is why I think Portland is a warning for America. If leaders can't find better ways to balance freedom and security, the country risks normalizing military-style responses to civil unrest. And that's dangerous. The Bible says in Isaiah 1:17, learn to do right, seek justice, and defend the oppressed. That's a reminder to pursue justice without becoming unjust ourselves. If violence meets violence, society crumbles. Justice without mercy is just another form of oppression. So, what do you think? Is sending troops to Portland against Antifa the right move to restore order? Or is it government overreach that puts freedom at risk? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments and let's have this conversation respectfully. I'm Dennis Njoroge and this has been my take. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay informed, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.